Hey everybody, thanks for
Hey
joining us
guys.
at the Breakfast and with the Boys podcast. Said I was going to go up before noon. Uh, we're recording this at 11:56, so that's probably not going to happen. Uh, had some
Oh well.
technical difficulties with some programs that I was trying to use, but we're just going to have to go with this for now.
Yeah.
Next week should be better, I hope.
Hopefully.
I should be more prepared. Uh, also, quick announcement: you're not the YouTube link on my current website is not going to take you to the YouTube channel where this is being uploaded, but that will be fixed on Monday. I promise it'll work.
It will
Um,
be fixed to our actual YouTube channel as
and not
opposed to Rick Astley.
not Rick Astley. Yeah. I needed to turn it in by yesterday night, so I had to put the YouTube link in, even though the channel didn't exist yet. So it's there now. Uh, it'll
So we
be
got yeah.
it'll be uploaded to the channel, this video, and then the website will be updated on Monday to have the full podcast on it and everything. But today we're going to talk about uh,
The World Series.
the most
And
important win in Chicago Cubs history, arguably.
for real, no, I definitely think you're right. Um I don't know, just um to come back from 3-1 deficit and win game 6 and 7 on the road is just, crazy to think about
Well, it's
for
pretty much impossible in the first place. It doesn't happen almost ever,
especially in baseball when legitimately anything can happen.
for sure.
Actually, the Cubs were the first team since the 1979 Pittsburgh Pirates to come back from a 3-1 deficit and win Game 6 and 7 on the road.
which
So
which is impressive to say the least, for sure.
yeah,
But
um,
I would say out of any sport, baseball has the most real effect of home field advantage.
oh
When you're at
definitely.
home, there's nothing like the energy towards the Indians is just it's unrivaled. But the thing with Cubs fans is there's so many of them, and Cleveland wasn't too far down the road. There was a lot of Cubs fans at the sixth and seventh game.
I actually for the games for Game 6 and Game 7, only about like 15% of tickets were bought from Ohio.
Which
So
is absolutely
which is
insane.
just, I mean, there was people in every state to see games. The actual most expensive ticket was bought for Game 7. The guy who bought them actually spent $25,000 a piece on 4 tickets for first row behind home plate.
That's
He
insane.
was probably hoping when he bought them that they weren't going to get to Game 7,
Probably
but they
not.
did, and he paid $100,000 to see his own team lose, which
That's
is which is kind
talk
of
about a
worth the
bad
money if you
investment.
ask me. Yeah, bad investment. Um,
Don't invest in the Cleveland Indians, folks. As
yeah,
we
you
were
heard it
mentioning
here, folks.
before, they are now they're aren't they now the longest team without a championship
Yes,
win?
yeah, 68 seasons now. Yeah, they're the longest team actually in all of sports at 68 seasons. The
Wow,
last championship was 1948.
that's
Um,
that's impressive.
yeah, and then Texas Rangers are at 56,
Okay,
but
so
no one
close
really cares
behind.
about the Rangers.
Yeah,
So,
true. Texas doesn't matter.
yeah. Whoa.
Whoa.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so just more stuff we want to talk about. I guess going on the Indians here, just so we don't sound biased with me being a Cubs fan and you being a part-time Cubs fan.
Yeah.
Um,
A Cubs fan
I
by association.
I I had low doubts for the Cubs at the beginning of this series. I mean, the Indians were doing everything right. I mean, game 2 ended 5-1, but
Yep,
they won game 1 6-0, and game 3 pitching took its toll in the 1-0 Indians victory.
for sure.
Game 4 they won 7-2. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
honestly,
Like
things looked really bleak, to say the least.
yeah, definitely. I mean, just to kind of put it into perspective for everyone, Cubs had 7 home runs in the last 3 games, one of them being a grand slam from Addison Russell in Game 6. And
Yep.
then in
Yep.
the first 4 games, they had just one home run, and that was a leadoff home run from Chris Bryant, or from Dexter Fowler in
Right.
Game 4. So
Okay. Yep.
I don't know what Madden talked to them about or what had happened. I honestly think they just changed their stances and went from trying to just drive the ball. I mean, I guess it's kind of ironic since they hit home runs, but when you're not trying to drive the ball, that's usually when you seem to hit the best.
Yeah,
So,
when you're just swinging not for home runs, but just for contact hits to get yourself in the game. Because really, in in those 3 games where they lost or like that, they really didn't. For me, from my perspective at least, it didn't feel like they were in the game offensively at all. Um,
no, definitely.
and I was gonna give. I mean, I do give credit to Cleveland pitchers. They pitched very well this season.
For
Definitely
sure.
not taking anything away from Kluber or any of those guys. They're amazing, but if you're swinging for power and you're taking big cuts, you're gonna miss a lot more. And the Cubs they almost seemed like they were falling flat, like they were swinging too hard, or they were, I don't, there was just something off about them in those games. And you're definitely
Oh,
right. They brought it back,
for
and it was
sure.
very strange because all of a sudden they were hitting like for contact, and they were getting base hits, and they were getting home runs that were just barely home runs.
Well, one of the biggest changes I saw in hitting from, I mean, from possibly the whole postseason, considering Addison Russell just kind of exploded in the World Series with just power and just just a certain amount of consistency that's hard to find in a 7 game series. But
For sure.
Russell was just he was incredible in the last 3 games,
He
I'd
really,
say.
he really showed
I
up.
mean, with a grand slam. Yeah, he did. And uh, just want to touch on the game 1 6-0 Indians win.
Yeah.
Cubs still put up 7 hits, but just no runs on the board. They left a lot of men on base, but kind of the biggest thing we want to talk about is, I mean, we both watched that game.
Correct.
I think everybody in the country knows how controversial a lot of the balls and strike calls were that the Cubs got. And John Lester pitched game 1. Um, if you watch the game, you could definitely notice the frustration on Lester's face following some of the pitches, and it was frustrating around the country. I mean, Cubs. Everyone expected the Cubs to come into this series and just kind of dominate. They didn't expect a game 7, and their backs against the wall for half the series. But
Right.
um, it's one thing to have a smaller strike zone, but it be for both of the teams and all of the batters,
Right.
opposed to as opposed to having a different strike zone for each team, which I think took place in game 1, and that definitely caused a little bit of advantage for Cleveland, which obviously didn't matter in the end. But
Right. But still,
I don't
yeah,
know.
for sure that to have that take place, and I agree with you. I don't know if it was just as much as trying to stay consistent in his calling, so he kept calling uh, good
Very
pitches,
true.
balls, but he should, like you said, stay consistent with both teams.
Yeah,
Where I feel like there was a lack of that. I feel like he consistently was calling like, I don't have a problem if you decide like that you're going to call something that keeps hitting the outside corner of the plate or a ball because you've called it a number of times before. But if you're going to make
yeah,
that call and you're going to continue to make that call, you need to make it fairly across both teams. Um,
correct. Yeah,
and when it comes to stuff like that, it's not just the pitcher that gets to. That adds a lot of stress and emotion to the entire dugout. If you're getting poor calls, I mean, we both
it
played high school.
discourages them.
It discourages you. It gets you upset. Everybody's mad about it. I'm not saying the Cubs should make an excuse as to why they lost. I mean, obviously that's a big deal, but just um, to have that connotation that the refs maybe the refs nice umps aren't playing, they're not treating the game fairly. That feeling can really derail your team. And I
Yeah,
think that's definitely something that brought the Cubs out of the first game for sure.
yeah, and I'm gonna bring us to game 7 real quick here.
Definitely.
Just I just want to talk about um in the 5th inning. Kyle Hendricks pitching an amazing like gem of a game. Had only given up 2 runs
Yeah.
previous to that, and actually he had only given up 1 run previous to that. I was looking at the wrong line score. But what happened in the 5th inning? Kyle Hendricks was pitching a gem of a game. It was a 2-2 count, or it was a 1-2 count. Kyle Hendricks just threw an absolute beauty of a pitch just on the outside corner, just painted the outside corner of the strike zone.
I remember that.
And it was called a ball.
Yep.
Both teams started walking off the field because they thought it was a strike, but it was a ball. Kyle Hendricks ended up walking him, and
that's when they put in Lester.
That's when Madden put in Lester when he had been warming up for an inning or two.
I think it was like at least 2 innings he had been warming up.
Yeah, they started warming up in like the 2nd or 3rd. And they brought him in. Lester ended up giving up 2 runs, throwing, I believe, 2 wild pitches, just giving up 2 runs, and bringing the game to 4-3 at that point. And that's when people started getting a little nervous.
I remember you calling me on the phone.
Yeah.
And
I was
yelling,
nervous, man.
And yelling, why did they pull Hendricks? And I'm like, dude, I don't know, but they shouldn't have.
Hendricks was pitching a gem, just an absolute.
If you didn't watch the game, like I don't know what could have, like if your child was being born or something and you missed that game, you missed an amazing pitching feat. To be honest,
I don't know what could have been more important.
Honestly, I don't know, but he had been pitching so well, and when I saw him warming Lester up, we kept thinking he was going to put him in at the top of an inning. Well, and he didn't. It blew us away.
What I have to say is for all the postseason games, they do a pregame and a postgame interview with the coaches and some of the players. And in the pregame interview for the Cubs, they were talking to Joe Madden, the Cubs manager, and they were asking him about, since it was Game 7 and Lester was fully rested, if he was going to make an appearance in the game. And he said he will definitely make an appearance as a relief pitcher, but we're going to put him in a clean inning because, that's what starters do, is they come in a clean inning. You don't bring a starting pitcher in a closing role. And that's also what he wanted to do with Chapman, because Chapman had problems earlier in the postseason with coming in, with 1 runner on, 2 runners on, 1 or 2 outs, and still giving up, large runs. I think it was in the Giants game where they ended up losing when they were up 2-1. No, because it's 1-2, isn't it? In the beginning series, yeah, because it's best of 5. Wait, that made no sense.
Are you talking like a play-in game or?
I'm talking about the.
No, yeah, no, it's 1-3.
Series and then championship series. Yeah, 1-3. So I believe they were up 2-0 over the Giants.
Okay.
And then Chapman came in with 2 runners on, and Connor Gatsby came in, hit a triple, and tied the game up, I believe. But then the Cubs came back and won, so it doesn't matter. But the
inconsistency with Chapman has been very strange.
Yeah.
Unlike him, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely depended on Chapman more than I think anyone expected them to in the World Series. I mean, he came in Game 5 at Wrigley for 8 outs. Mm-hmm. 8 outs to get. He got all 8. I believe he only gave up 1 run, if any. Yeah. No, he didn't give up a single run, actually, in his 8 outs. And he was just spectacular. I mean, that game, most importantly, was, one they definitely needed a win because they were down 3-1, and Chapman came in and really just dealt what he needed to.
He really showed up at that game for sure. Can we talk about I want to say Madden was in an interview, and he claimed that Chapman was not going to be pitching in the following game, and then he ended up pitching anyways.
What game?
I want to say it was 6. Because he pitched a long game in 7,
Chapman did not pitch in Game 6.
or maybe it was 6 and he said he wasn't. I don't know, but I could have swore, or maybe that was Lester. They said he wasn't going to pitch, and then he ended up pitching anyways. I'm not sure.
I know for a fact Chapman didn't pitch Game 6 because it was 9-3.
Okay.
So they wouldn't have brought him in for that, I don't think. But Game 7, I think, Game 7, they said he wasn't going to pitch unless they like absolutely needed him to.
Okay, yeah, that was it.
And that was mostly because at that point the Cubs were up. I mean, the Indians put up a three spot in the 8th inning, but even then it was still 6-5, or it was 6-6 at that point.
Right.
But the whole rest of the game was 6-3, 6-4. Just things that you don't really need a closer in all that much for unless it's 1 or 2 runs. But Ben also said in that pregame interview that he didn't want Chapman coming in a dirty inning because that's not what he's good for. I mean, we saw problems earlier in the series where he had came into a dirty inning and had given up runs, and Ben didn't want to take chances. But I believe he ended up bringing Chapman and Lester in dirty innings, and Chapman ended up getting out of his. Lester pitched great after that first first little rough patch in the 5th inning. But I mean, I think for me hearing that Madden wasn't going to bring them in with runners on base, and then he brought both of them in with runners on base, and it ended up costing them, just kind of, I don't know. I bet that really discouraged him more than anything because he kind of went against his own word with it.
Yeah, he's second. He basically just went against his own word, like you said, and it kind of bit him in the butt. And I know for a fact that you and I were both so nervous.
Yeah, we were definitely
when the wild pitches were happening and the runs were scored and the game got closer. Because at that point, like before Lester came in, it felt like the game had been won smoothly. Like it felt like all we needed was them to come in and just close it out, and it would have been over, done, happy World Series. Everybody that's not from Cleveland's happy, but it didn't. It took a curve, like it really did, and it really freaked us both out. And I'm kind of happy that happened because it made for a much more interesting Game 7. It would have been kind of boring if the Cubs just blew them out, but
6-1.
Yeah,
because that's what it was until the 5th inning, and until then, it was just like Cubs won. Like this game is over. 8th inning, Cleveland put up 3 runs, and it was 6-6, and everyone was on their seats for that. And then we talk about the rain delay that happened at the end of the 9th inning.
That was absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion.
I think it was ridiculous. Travis Shaw, one of Cleveland's just great relievers in their bullpen, was in the top of the 9th inning, and then the rain delay, it was so short that they brought him back in, but he ended up giving up 2 runs.
For sure, yeah.
If it was any longer, Shaw wouldn't have come in. They would have warmed someone else up. So the rain delay was only 15 minutes. I think if it was, 20, 30 minutes, they would have brought someone new in, and the game would have been different. Cubs might not have scored 2 runs.
Yeah.
But if there was no rain delay, I think Shaw would have came back in and been dominant, and the game would have been different. So
for sure.
I think that rain delay helped the Cubs in a way.
Yeah, me and you both discussed, and at the time of the game when we were watching it, I remember you saying, if they bring Shaw in, the Indians have a good chance to win this game.
Yeah.
Because he's been so consistently good in
for sure.
getting double plays and ground balls, and he has a lot of strikeouts too. And for him to come in was definitely very scary. But when we saw the rain delay, we were both upset. I remember, one because it was really late.
Well, it was it was 12:30 for you, I believe,
I'm not
or it was midnight, somewhere around there.
at least, yeah.
But yeah, everyone. I mean, that game ended up being over 5 hours, which is just crazy for a game seven. First of all,
Right.
but Shaw was definitely dominant. Let's jump into talk about the bullpens here. I guess let's start with the Cubs since I have brief things to say about it. Cubs bullpen was they were good. They still, when they came in, gave up a run or two almost every outing, which is
It
hard.
kind of seemed like every time they came in, they had a shaky start.
Yeah,
It seemed like they'd come in and they'd look nervous. They'd be sweating by the time they'd thrown the first 10 pitches. Uh, and I think that has a lot to do with a team that's extremely nervous about the position that they're in.
yeah. Just, I mean, having your back against the wall and being brought in as a pitcher is probably not a great feeling.
No, and I'm assuming that the stress levels for a relief pitcher coming in, especially if you've got guys on base, and it's the middle of the inning, everything's riding on you,
Definitely.
takes a lot of toll on you, and you're probably not going to throw some really great pitches to start.
Of course,
But they got to get
once.
When you're a pro, you got to get focused in.
Yeah, but they give up some runs and then they come back. They give up a run or two, come back in, and just be dominant again, and that's what they needed to do. The closer, Aroldis Chapman, was just shut out for most of the games. I mean, in Game 7, he gave up a 2-run home. He gave up 3 runs in the inning. Yep. One being the tying home run, 2-run home run to Rajai Davis in the 8th inning.
Yep.
That was a heartbreak.
That was
for people around the country.
I remember literally laying on the floor.
I saw the ball go up, and I could not watch that ball come back down.
First of all, it was Rajai. It was Rajai freaking Davis,
who played for the Tigers, which is pretty much our other favorite team.
Oh.
I mean, that's our childhood team. It's the Tigers. So
to watch Rajai get up and be like, oh yeah, dude, Rajai sucks, dude, easy out, and then watch him hit that 2-run home run was like the life just drained from me.
But yeah, that was draining. Yeah, you want to talk about the Indians bullpen real quick?
Well, let's. That's the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about with that is the thought in Game 7 to put Shaw back in.
Yeah,
I think that was the mistake that they made that cost them Game 7 in the World Series. Obviously they needed to get Klubat out of there because he was getting destroyed, which I could not believe.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. The Cubs lit him up so bad. But they kept
go ahead.
With new pitchers, they kept putting him in, and it felt like they were gonna shut the Cubs down. They had been doing decently. The innings were going by fast, and which was fine. We didn't care. We were like, yeah, whatever. We've got a big lead. We're up 6-1. Let's have the innings go faster. And then it got down, and the Cubs continued to get shut out, and the Indians were scoring and bringing things back, and that's when Shaw came in, and we were both like, this could be potentially. When they brought him back in, we thought it was good. But when they brought him in the first time, like when he came in for the first time before the rain delay, we were legitimately scared that they were going to want it at this point, tie it up, and then that Shaw was going to dominate the Cubs in the fact that they would not be able to score any more runs, and Cleveland would walk away with a 1-run victory with a huge comeback.
And they didn't. They went 1-2-3 in the 9th inning.
Right.
At the hand of Shaw.
Which was crazy.
It was, yeah. And everyone was very anxious in the bottom of the 9th inning because they could have hit one walk-off home run or gotten 1 run and the game would have been over.
Yep, sweating bullets.
What I want to say is what the Cubs did differently in the games that they won as opposed to the games they lost. in the games they won, they scored 5, they scored 3, they scored 9, and they scored 8. Those are all pretty substantial numbers. What they did was in every winning game for them, they scored all of their runs in the first 5 innings. So I think what they did was they just attacked the starters. And, they knew that Cleveland's bullpen was just going to be dominant and that they weren't going to be able to score many runs off of them. So what they did in those games that they won, where they just came out, attacked the starters, and scored as many runs as they could before they got them out of the game. And that was the winning strategy I think that they had.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Other than Kluber, I would say that Cleveland's relief pitchers are holistically stronger and better than their starters. Not in like game sense, but in giving up runs. I would say that the relief pitchers do a lot better job shutting innings down than most of the closing pitchers. Than the starting pitchers for Cleveland. Obviously, throughout the season, Kluber has been impeccable. He's been amazing. Don't want to take anything away from him, but I think their relievers overall were stronger. So I think you're right in the fact that the Cubs, I don't know how they all of a sudden just decided, hey, we're gonna hit really hard off these guys, because it didn't seem like that was happening well in the games where they were getting blown out, where they weren't getting like any runs. And then all of a sudden they come back and now they're hitting all these hits and home runs off of the starters, which they couldn't do in the other games. And I don't know what clicked there.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, I don't really know what clicked in that game, where they just kind of came in and were doing great. But the Cubs saw Corey Kluber, Trevor Bauer, and Josh Tomlin were pretty much the main 3.
Yep.
They short rested Corey Kluber. I believe he pitched 3 games.
Yep.
I don't know. They short rested Andrew Miller, and he came in and gave up a few runs in, I believe, Game 6. I don't know. Other than that, the starters. Kluber pitched an amazing Game 1, and I believe he won his first 2 games. He must have pitched Game 4 or Game 5, he pitched Game 4 because Bauer pitched Game 5, and I was at Game 5 in Wrigley.
Yeah, you were.
And Bauer did not pitch great. And another thing, in the beginning of the podcast, we were talking about how amazing home field advantage is in games like these. And it really was. The whole crowd was chanting Cleveland's pitcher's name. We were all chanting Bauer. And you could tell that it really got to him, because he gave up runs. He gave up like 2 or 3 runs in an inning because he was just shaken. And I don't know. The Dodgers interviewed Adrian Gonzalez before they went back to Wrigley for Game 5, and Adrian Gonzalez was just kind of being all snotty and saying, yeah, Dodger Stadium is bigger than Wrigley. Like, we just tune all the fans out. They don't have a bunch of fans. They won't be as loud as they can, blah, 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 all this. Cubs ended up winning that game. So screw you, Adrian Gonzalez.
But I think we can talk about maybe the collapse of the Cleveland pitching being accredited to, all of a sudden, they might not win. All of a sudden, they've got this momentum, and it gets shut down. They won all these games. They're way ahead. All they need is one more to do it. Maybe they're overconfident. Maybe they come in like, all we need is just one more game. We'll just take it easy. We got games to give. All we need is just a peak performance, shut them down. And they couldn't do it.
And what is just I bet just a horrible feeling when you're up 3-1 and you're at Wrigley Field or you're at home. They had to cover the Indians clubhouse with all the stuff for them to celebrate. They had to put up all the I cannot think of the word right now.
Confetti or something.
No, like they had to get all the like all the plastic up so that the
Oh.
champagne didn't get everywhere and
Oh,
stuff
okay.
like that. So they had to totally set up the clubhouse because they were expecting them to win and just to be ready. And so they'd come back to the clubhouse and everything would be ready for them to win and they lose.
Yep.
And that happened 3 games. 3 games. And the Cubs come back, get to celebrate one time and be happy. But yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, being up 3-1 going into game 5, and then like we can lose this game. It's not a huge deal because we'll come back, have 2 games at home, and there's no way we lose both of those games at home.
Right. The only other team that I can think of this isn't even a baseball team. This is a few years back in hockey. The Vancouver Canucks were playing the Bruins. They had a 3-0 lead. They needed one more, and they would have won the Stanley Cup. And the Bruins won 4 straight games and ended up beating Vancouver. And there were riots, and it was crazy. And I remember an interview with the Sedin twins, who are the leading offensive players for Vancouver, and I remember seeing them in tears and talking about how their team got too confident, and then once the pressure got put back on, they couldn't perform. And obviously, hockey is a very different sport from baseball, but I mean, some of that is still true. Like, if you get too confident in your abilities in anything, it can be detrimental to your performance.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it happens in any. I mean, I guess not really football because you just play one game and that's it. But I remember long time ago when I still watched hockey. Red Wings were in the Stanley Cup. I think they were going for back-to-back Stanley Cup wins, and they were playing the Penguins, and they were up like 3-1, and the Penguins ended up winning 2 of the games, or the last 2 games at home, and then they went back to the Joe and lost like 3-2 or something like that.
Brutal game.
Something crazy like that. Stopped watching hockey after that. So.
Done.
Yeah. Let's talk about the American League versus the National League and how that came into effect. Kyle Schwarber coming back, 3 at-bats, or I don't know if it was 3. He had under 10 at-bats in the first 3 games of the season. He was out for the whole season, for those of you guys who don't know, due to a torn ACL or something of that matter. He ran into his teammate Dexter Fowler going for a fly ball.
Very serious injury, for sure.
Left center field, was out for the whole season, but they brought him back to pinch hit and to DH in the World Series.
And he was
with big at-bats.
Amazing. I couldn't believe how good he played. Well, how good he batted, at least.
He had one game that was the day before the World Series where he played, and he had 3 at-bats in that game, and he had 1 hit. And that was, that was the deciding moment where they were like, this guy is okay to hit, and we need him to hit. And he ran pretty good, too.
Surprisingly, yeah.
He came in, hit a double, ran great, So we're looking forward to him next season. But I think in the first games, how Cleveland played the game as opposed to how the net, because what they've been doing in baseball lately is strategic playing. They've been they put a relief pitcher in left field one of the games during the regular season so he could come in and pitch again, which is and he made an amazing catch too at the warning track. He made an amazing catch over his head, and I'll never forget it. But it was, I don't know, man. Cleveland played like they were playing American League style. They were playing, their pitcher was batting, but they weren't trying too hard, I guess. It's the thing I'm going for.
I don't know if there's any other way to say it. Yeah.
No, Madden's a genius when it comes to baseball and switching people in and out.
Which is
And
why we had
I
such a
think that's
difficulty with the Lester switch in, because it was uncharacteristic of him, to say the
yeah,
least.
and I think Madden was playing like he was playing another National League team where they knew all the strategies and they just knew what to do. And I think that's what got him killed, honestly, in the first few games.
Yeah, I believe you.
It's because they were just switching out too many guys when they didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess another thing I want to add in is how many pitchers were seen in these 7 games, because it was a staggering amount. I don't have a statistic, but in each game we saw probably 4 to 6 pitchers from each team.
Right.
I mean, you don't see that in the postseason all that much when you bring a lefty in for just one batter. But yeah, I don't know. It was an amazing series. Game 6, Game 7 was just a riot. It was great. The Cubs played great. The Indians played great too. I think the deciding factor in all of it was the morale that got busted in losing Game 5
Yep.
and definitely losing Game 6 9-3 busted the morale. So
I would agree. Overall, personally though, credit where credit is due. Both teams had amazing seasons. Anytime any of my favorite teams were playing Cleveland, like when Detroit played Cleveland or when my Toronto Blue Jays played Cleveland, they were good, man. They destroyed Detroit every time they played.
Yeah, definitely.
Shutouts, just mowed them down. The Blue Jays were about the only team that could win a series against Cleveland in the regular season. So I was excited for the postseason with the Blue Jays against the Indians, and my Blue Jays got destroyed.
But
And I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, well, in a lot of ways, I found the Cubs and the Jays to be a very similar team in a lot of aspects, and to see Cleveland completely dismantle Toronto's hitting, which is definitely their biggest threat, and to just blow them out like that, I couldn't believe it, and it really made me scared for the Cubs. And the Cubs really showed up. Honestly, it was a great season, and I'm really excited for the next one.
Just one last thing to add. You and I did not expect the American League. We did not expect the Cleveland Indians to be in the World Series, did we?
No. I think we both had them getting eliminated earlier.
Yeah, the wild card game between Toronto and Baltimore was, first of all, an amazing game. Because we all know you don't pitch to Edwin.
I was beyond hype. I called that hit. It was insane. I was like, Alex, if they pitch to Edwin, they're gonna lose.
It's over.
They're gonna lose. He's gonna hit a home run. It was a first pitch. It was gone. It was upper deck. I was ecstatic. I was gone. And to see that play in, and then to come in and destroy Texas.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? I was like,
well, what
a play.
What we expected was Boston was going to beat Cleveland in like 3 games. They were just going to sweep Cleveland, and Toronto was going to beat Texas, and then it was going to be Toronto and Boston.
Which is the game that I was really looking for.
Win that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were both looking forward to that. Cleveland came in, dominated Boston. Texas came in, dominated Toronto.
No,
and that
Toronto dominated Texas, but then
did they?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then
Toronto did go to the second round.
And Toronto got destroyed
by Cleveland. And then the Nationals played the Dodgers, ended up going to Game 5 and lost that in Washington.
Yeah, they really fell apart.
Yeah, and then the Mets and the Giants wild card game was great. And the Cubs just were dominant all postseason. So
I would agree.
We all knew the Cubs were going to win the World Series from the beginning.
Yeah, but I made a bet against that a while back.
Yeah,
and I paid $38
for A Cubs
Or
hat.
Cubs World Series hat that is still not been delivered to me.
Still not here.
I ordered it like a week and a half ago. I ordered it like
You ordered it last Tuesday.
I ordered it. I ordered it the night of the Cubs
the
victory,
World Series.
like 3 in the morning. No, it was like 2 in the morning. I take that back. And they said it was going to be at my home within 3 to 7 business days. And I got an email 2 days ago from MLBshop.com, which is where I ordered it from, sponsored, but not really sponsored, saying that it had just shipped. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I checked like the shipping tracking, and it literally had to ship from Ohio to Michigan, which is not very far. So they didn't ship it until a week, like the full week where they said it was going to be there. So like at 1 week they said it was going to be here. After that week expired, like that week was over, they sent me an email saying that it had just now been shipped and its expected delivery time was going to be Monday the 14th. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean Monday the 14th?
Thanks, UPS.
Yeah, so it's gonna be here soon, I guess. But I mean,
Dude, I'm looking at the bracket right now. I did not know the Indians beat Toronto 4-1.
yeah, it broke my heart actually. But
and then Edward might not even stay in Toronto.
no, I heard that he might go.
And then R.A. Dickey just went to the Braves.
It's fine. He hasn't been pitching that great. I'm okay with that. I love Dickie though. I love you. But
I love you. I love you so much.
we're gonna have to call this quits because at this point this upload is gonna take a really long time because we have been recording for approximately 40 minutes.
40?
Yeah, the Skype call is at 45 minutes right now, and I started it while we were like 3 minutes in. So we're coming up on some time here. So this is gonna be.
Oh well, it was a good conversation.
This is gonna be the lunch with the boys today. Late afternoon lunch.
Late brunch with the boys.
Late
brunch with the boys.
Yeah, for sure.
Brunch with the boys.
But
there we go.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for letting us talk about baseball instead of the election because nobody really wanted to hear us talk about that probably after the big mess on that. But
we'll either have a new straw poll with new topics for next week's conversation, or we'll just come up with one. And we'll probably have a special guest next week, too.
Definitely going to have a special guest. Definitely going to have a new straw poll up. I'll probably post that either Monday or probably Monday or Tuesday. That's going to get posted. Yeah. That's going to be on the website where the new links are going to be. Everything should be updated by Monday. Not sure who the guest speaker is going to be. I guess it depends on the topic that gets picked and who we decide is going to be coming on.
For sure.
Anyways, this is going to be really long, but if you made it this far, we appreciate you stopping by. And like we said, this is going to be a new weekly podcast. We're going to try and be more on top of things in the future because I figured this would be easier than it was. So everything's kind of working, but the format should be different in following weeks and should go smoother and actually be up in the morning as opposed to the late afternoon. But
so you can watch this with your breakfast
or your lunch if you're like us and sleep in until 11. But anyways, thank you guys so much for stopping by again. We really appreciate it. And
we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. This has been I'm Zach, and this was Alex.
I'm Alex.
So we'll catch you guys next week. See ya.